Hello, Snips. I didn't expect to see you so soon. I actually almost went with
Ahsoka.
Is that what this is about? You've learned nothing. Back to the beginning.
Back to the beginning.
I also love, is that what you're hung up about? How I murdered millions? Are we still hung up on this? I said sorry. Sorry.
It's sorry.
Right.
I saw someone on Twitter say,
I
I'm sorry, Anakin, if this is
apologized.
a touchy subject for you.
Yeah.
That it's out of, like an interviewer.
It's out of bounds.
Like an interviewer sitting down with Anakin Skywalker would be afraid
I'm
to
outta
ask the
here.
big question. So, we know about all the things, all the things you did in your time with the Jedi Council. Yeah, it was great. All was,
All right,
it was
can
great.
we roll the tapes
But,
of the younglings?
Of the younglings, let's see the.
Everyone saw it. We all saw it.
we all saw it.
What, Anakin, what happened there? Oh, is that you still hung up about that? They said no questions about.
It was
no questions
Outta
about the
here.
most
It
important
was-
thing that ever
it was
happened.
one bad tweet.
It was one bad tweet.
It was one bad tweet.
Ambien. Blame
So
Ambien.
I always think, I always think that's funny. Even though the Anakin Ahsoka stuff's probably my favorite stuff of the whole series.
Right.
The whole series, but I feel
See,
like that was a good.
we
good
live
one
in
to bring back.
duality. We love and we chastise and we ridicule
Exactly.
because
We are
some stuff's
all
funny,
of-
but
yeah.
we love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was their way of addressing it, but also saying, "Yeah, we're not gonna.
exactly. We're not
we're not
going
gonna
there.
dive into it."
Yeah,
An important lesson for her to learn. If we are all of the just like all of us are, we are parts of. As I get older, there's things I do that I'm like, that looks a lot like my dad, or I walk
Yeah.
similar to
right.
him. Ahsoka is, they talk about the Jedi being the culmination of not just her master, but her master's master and all this.
Yeah.
And it feels good to know that she is not just the bad parts, that she's not doomed to become what Anakin became, but she's also the good parts, and that she can choose the path. And so I think
Yeah.
that's always an important thing for not just that show, but also, we tie it to Rey, which we'll bring up a little bit of
Yeah.
Yeah.
some Rey stuff coming up here in a little bit when we talk about future Star Wars news. But you're not who your father was. You're not who your teacher was. You are what you
Choose
choose to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's it for us.
It's a good way to wrap it up.
That's it.
Wait, where can they find us?
Good night.
Anyway, welcome back to the Star Wars Guys podcast. As always, we are your hosts, Mike,
Hello there.
Nate. Hello there, and you know him well, Uncle.
Hello there. We got the sick voice.
Yeah, we
I
do.
like that,
We
though.
got
Hello
a
there.
little sick
That's a
voice
little
here.
like,
I'm
this
already.
guy got a little Thor, a
Simba.
little Russell
I'm
Crowe
already
over
one
there.
cough
It's
drop
nice.
in.
Simba.
Simba.
That's your last cough drop too.
It is. It
Wait.
is.
You're sick. You're sick. What am I doing here?
Don't
music.
know.
No,
Is-
we're
is that what this is about? To get me sick?
Welcome to the
This is
sick
about-
cast.
we're back. We're back.
Yeah.
We were
This
off
is
there
the-
for a little bit, and
Hiatus.
We come
And-
back as the sick council.
Hiatus.
the sick council. Yeah.
Sick council.
We're back, but no, we're excited to get into it. There's been some recent news. Filoni's got a new role at Lucasfilm. We're going to
Officially.
talk a little bit about Taika Waititi.
pizza
Mike
roll.
teased Rey. What's next for the High Republic? We're going to dive all into the future or what's next with Star Wars to come. Now with Ahsoka in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, I mean when we were talking about this episode, and we've been off for a number of weeks around kind of Thanksgiving and
Why were we
this
off
is-
again?
Well, this is my first podcast
Well, I was partly responsible.
back. Is this my first podcast back since? I think this is my first podcast back since my daughter, our little
Leave,
baby
yeah.
girl, was
He was on
I was
paternity
on-
leave.
I was. I was on
Paternity
Jedi.
leave.
As a Jedi, I shall father no children. Psych! Oh, I will.
was paid. We paid
I'll
him.
do it again.
I'll do it again. Watch me.
Tempt me, Yoda. I'll do it again.
Did I tell you what I told my kids? So Macy,
Yeah.
I said, you don't know this. Mace Windu's birthday is around the same time, so that's why they named her Macy,
That's
Yeah.
and they believed me for 0 seconds.
it. What people don't know is her middle
That
name
long.
is. It's her
They're like,
middle
"No,
name
it
is
isn't."
Windu. It's
Windu.
Macy Windu. Macy Windu.
That sells it.
Macy Windu, and then it's hyphenated.
Hyphenated.
Partially turned Anakin to the dark side. Messer. It's
That's.
because we always like to
Very
blame Mace
common.
Windu.
It's good to choose a classic name.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Lean
Something
toward
everyone will
those.
be like, oh, that's
Not hard to
what's
spell.
that? But yeah, when we were talking about this episode of our podcast, there's some time has passed now. There's a number of things I wanted to touch on. I want to touch on some of the kind of not massive Star Wars news, but there's little bits and pieces. I know Dave Filoni, and Hayden Christensen, and Rosario Dawson, a number of people were quoted in a recent Vanity Fair article, in the EW article, now that the strikes are over.
Yeah.
Because they can finally talk about the show. So a lot of, I mean, they couldn't, even talk about their experience on the show, all these actors and writers and stuff. So we'll discuss some of the quotes there, some of the things maybe moving forward for Ahsoka and other things, because there's a little bit of some Daisy Ridley interviews, some Taika Waititi interviews. But then also just with now, kind of where I wanted to start briefly, we don't have to spend much time on it, but with Ahsoka in the rear view mirror, or like being removed now a little bit because we're a month, 2 months after it finished.
Yeah.
I like to sometimes go back. I think not just us on this podcast, but me in general on a lot of Star Wars stuff or movies in general. You have a quick reaction when you see something. You watch a movie, you come out of the theater, and you think that might be the best movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And then like 2 months later, or really bad,
yeah.
and then you see it again, and you go, "Oh, that's
right.
That's
better than I remember.
That's better than I remember." Or there's some movies like The Last Jedi that I
remember.
saw and I thought,
No,
I
I
have
feel
to
that.
sit with this.
Not
Yeah, I have
sure.
to sit with this. And it's grown more and more, and I love The Last Jedi. It's even, it's strengthened. My love for it is strengthened over time. But I just wonder where now, after looking at not only the other shows, but specifically Ahsoka right now, how do we feel about Ahsoka? Just one kind of final bow on the present that was Ahsoka that Dave Filoni and Lucasfilm and Kathleen
I'll
Kennedy
put a bow on it.
gave us. What's your feeling? I know we were pretty high at the end of it. What are you feeling?
I'm still pretty high.
Yeah.
I think I feel the same way I felt while I was watching it, and since it ended, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I mean, with every
In
we always
comparison
say
of
this,
other
with every
shows, though,
project,
yeah.
there's certain things. I'm like, oh, well, that was an interesting take or an interesting way to go about the story, or I didn't see that coming. But overall, the dialogue, the just breaking down everything between Ahsoka and Hayden Christensen, and then even the tease with him as the Force Ghost at the end. But diving into all of the Mortis stuff too, and leaving that as a literal cliffhanger.
Mhm.
I loved it. I can't wait for them to continue the story.
Yeah. Same. We talked about Andor being a more of a slow paced story, which I loved.
Yeah,
The story arc of all the characters, I'm interested in all of those.
all of them.
Yeah.
Like there's some of them I'm not like, oh yeah, kind of curious, but I'm not really,
Yeah,
But this, they're all interesting stories to follow.
Yeah.
The one thing I made a mistake. I saw somebody create a slightly sped up version of the fighting. Have you seen
Yeah.
that?
I think you told me to look it up, and I think I
don't
looked it
think
up
I've-
somewhere.
no,
and
I
I
haven't
saw
It was
seen
pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Slightly sped up but that might just because somebody made it a little bit faster.
Yeah.
It feels now. I think I wonder if it was a little,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I think those are fair.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
even the pacing in general is definitely a little slow in those
Yeah,
first
I was
few
fine with
episodes, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
Even then, like in the first few episodes, I think it kind of really, the show really hits its stride, like episode 4. Like
Yeah.
it's all good. It's all
Right.
really good. We loved even the beginning, but like they spent a long time with Sabine looking at the map and like where then it's kind of like we're going.
Yep.
But I loved the show. I think that it was, to me, it felt like a great blend of what and again, all these shows are imperfect. I think that maybe the most consistent quality might have been Andor kind of throughout, as far
Mhm.
as just like there's not a peak that's like Luke showing up at the end
Right.
of
Not that kind of a
Mando season 2 that
Yeah.
that I'm like, this is the rewatch moment that all of the internet's going to be talking about.
Yeah.
Which it's hard to do that with a prequel show, anyways, because
Yeah.
you know what comes afterwards. But it was like it kind of hit it, like start off strong and kind of stays at this steady Where I think maybe Obi-Wan's a little bit more up and down, where like the peaks are super high, and there's some of
it
my
has
favorite
the moments
things.
I'll go back, and it has the moments the episode.
I think even Boba. I mean, I think it's become the popular thing now to say like the Boba Fett wasn't any good, but like
that finale was sick.
Well, not even just that. Like you have the finale. You also have like I was watching the other day just a couple clips on YouTube or a couple clips on Disney Plus of Cad Bane. In like when he first walks out and shows up in the desert,
that was
Stranger
amazing.
in a Strange Land, all this stuff. You're like, this is incredible. But like, so you kind of forget like that show was great. Yes, I do admit I think that show probably had its lowest valleys as far as the low points. Like maybe had
it
moments
definitely has those rewatchable
Obi-Wan has
moments.
some moments that also feel like, oh man, if this little chase was a little more sped up, it might feel a little, might feel a little bit of heightened stakes or feel a little more fantastical about it.
Right.
But this show felt like it was even Mando season 3 definitely has its moments. I think that's like, not my favorite episode, and then like, whoa, that was incredible.
Yeah.
And this show kind of felt like it was a little bit more in the closer to, I think, consistent, to maybe closer to Andor as far as, even though they're very different shows, it didn't feel like I'm like swinging from episode to episode, like amazing, and then oh man, that was kind of a letdown.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had letdowns in the
didn't
show.
either.
It was like there's moments of dialogue or acting or decisions that I'm like, I'm not sure if that's how that was supposed to be played, or maybe that's not my. I wish they would. Not even like I wish they would have done this, but more like, I wish we had spent more time with that character.
Yeah,
here.
I want to keep going.
I want to keep going here.
Yep.
But I loved it. And what's interesting
is it your guys' favorite live action? Do you think?
Ooh.
It might be
overall.
I mean, I think
that is kind of where my question was going. Is like, as far as, now that we're removed. When I saw Rogue One and I walked out of the theater, I think I said that might be the best Star Wars movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I still love Rogue One, but if you ask me my list, it's usually not at the top of my list of the Star Wars. So I'm wondering, is this a show like that you're like, okay, now that I'm stepped
and
back.
Last Jedi was not at the top when I walked out, and now it is.
Yeah,
now it is.
So similar feeling. Is this now that you step back? Do you not that you always have to have a list, but like, do you think like, I clearly put this over Obi-Wan, or I clearly put this over Mando?
You have a list.
You have a list.
You're either with me or against me. Only a Sith and I deal in absolutes.
Listen, that's what that was.
The list might change daily, but you have a list.
Oh, you have one.
Is that what this is about? Are you a Sith, Obi-Wan? I knew it.
I knew it.
I don't know. I think my love for Andor and just the style of that show actually in some ways makes me even appreciate the other shows even more, because we've talked about this. One of the great things about Star Wars is just the diversity within you can go with so many different genres of storytelling, that you can go almost way more sci-fi with Ahsoka and the Mortis Gods than you watch Andor, and I'm like, how is this the same?
We freak out over
universe?
one TIE fighter.
Yeah, one TIE fighter. We're like, I felt it. I felt it.
No, right.
And then in this, we've got Ahsoka waking up in the world between worlds. It's like this universe is so vast that because like I love Andor so much, and it's so much different than Ahsoka, but it almost makes me appreciate jumping from the different genres, because I'm like, I love getting the variety.
Yeah.
If every single show that came out had the same theme and feeling and vibe of Andor, then I'd be like, oh, well, this is kind of getting stale.
Yeah.
But the fact that we can jump around makes me be like, oh, I love eating from this platter, and I like eating from that platter.
Yeah.
It's nice to have the variety.
Yeah, definitely. I think I felt that even the most maybe after seeing this show coming off of Mando 3, because as much as I
loved Mando 3.
No, as much as I love The Mandalorian, though, I do think at the end of Mando 3, I did start getting the feeling a little bit of,
Where's
glad.
Mando going?
Well, not even just that, but like also just the vibe of it, which I really like. I am glad that this is not the feeling and the type of show that every Star Wars show is going to be.
The
reason why, because I think it has its great things about it, and then there's also its moments that I liked in Ahsoka, that when we go walk into some Imperial officers, I'm not looking for like Tim Meadows. And like, even though I think that's a fun thing, there are times I think that it takes me out of Mando a little bit of like it feels
Definitely.
a little bit more almost there's almost like a sketch comedy to it, or like there's a little bit of like feeling like it's taking me out of the myth because I am so aware that this is the SNL host of the week who's now in, like, it feels like that a little bit sometimes. And again, I think sometimes it's played brilliantly. Like, I don't feel that way about seeing Carl Weathers' character. But when you throw Jack Black, when you throw Jack Black, or you throw some of these guys that, like, even though I love Christopher Lloyd, Christopher Lloyd coming in for 30 minutes to film or something, and I'm the whole time I'm going, that's Doc Brown, like, and I'm thinking about it a lot. But I like that. So I do like that this feels a little bit, and it feels a little bit less episode to episode. This feels like a here's Filoni, who has a story, who
Mando
knows he
definitely
wants
feels
to tell
more
a story.
episode.
We're serving the story rather
episode to
than
episode.
a vehicle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that there's room for both. It's not that, because I think Mando has, especially in its first couple seasons, I think really succeeded in its own style.
Well, Ahsoka didn't night Grogu, so
That's true.
It's true. They would have. Well, one of the things about Star Wars that kind of makes it Star Wars in a way is that we introduce actors that we don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we did in 4. Kind of did that in the prequels a little bit, but and then again in the sequels too. But that to me is one of the features of it. So we see that in Andor somewhat.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Helps you suspend disbelief
And
too, because then
Ahsoka,
you see,
too,
you think
right.
the character as the character.
Then you can't get attached. You're like, they could
especially when it's
go
like
anytime.
like these new characters.
New characters, right? Mm-hmm.
And again, it doesn't mean they have to be completely unknowns either. Like, Ray Stevenson is an actor who's been around and has done a lot of things. He was phenomenal. He's definitely one of the high points of the Ahsoka show. And I'm not thinking like, oh yeah, that's the guy that I've also seen being Thor's friend in the first Thor movie, which that is
he was
one of the things he's been in. Speaking of Ray Stevenson's character, I saw Filoni was talking about he was talking in this Vanity Fair article about Ray Stevenson and the future of Baylan Skoll. And there's some quotes in here that I think gives me hope, and some other things I'm like, I'm a little bit not concerned, like, I'm concerned they're making their own decision, but like, I don't think it's set in stone that we're going to see the continuation of some of it. We might, but here's the quotes that Filoni had. Dave Filoni on Ray Stevenson and the future of Baylan Skoll. Obviously, there's a story there. Right now, we're in a wait-and-see pattern at this point. But I'm glad the conversation is about Ray and how great he was. And he goes on to say, this was a funny part of it, he goes on to say, I used to have many debates with Ray, and I would have to tell him, Ray, you're the villain here. And he would argue with me and be like, no, I don't think so. And I was like, I don't think, he said, I know you don't, Filoni said, I would respond, I know you don't think so, but you are. And I love you're playing it like you're not, which is exactly the way Baylan thinks. But I like that Filoni is also like kind of...
He wasn't just buying into the character. He's like,
No,
no, I really don't think...
Yeah, and I like that Filoni didn't go... not to throw, Colin Trevorrow under the bus with his episode 9 script, but didn't go the way of
having said that...
Yeah, but didn't go the way of like...
I will.
Filoni knows that, no... We are very clear that when in Baylan's first scene, when he and Shin come off of the ship and there's guards that are unarmed and you stab them with a lightsaber, you're the villain.
Yeah, welcome to the villain
That's not a Jedi
side.
thing. That's not a good guy thing. That's not a gray area thing of, well, maybe they kill, but they're also, because this is different. It's also
with morals.
This is not a Han Solo. He knows Greedo's there to kill him and has a blaster on him and he beats him to the punch.
Yeah.
This is, we are no Jedi, and like love the fact that they're just murdering these people. You're a bad guy, but I like the way that any classic bad guy doesn't think that they're the bad guy. Right? That's what makes them so compelling. Is that they don't go around saying, "Yeah, I'm a bad guy." They think that they are the good guy.
Mhm.
And
in
this
some
show did
twisted
a
way.
good job of
Or at least
starting with that, like starting hot, starting off hot with those two characters,
yeah.
and then slowly peeling back the layers of like, oh wait, he actually does have some sort of code that he follows, or
Now
at least
see,
thinks he follows.
I'm with Ray a little bit because Andor is the good guy, right?
Yes. No, that's
Yeah.
true.
And one of the first times we see him, he shoots his friend in the gut and then
Yes.
climbs out.
Yeah,
Definitely. I think maybe it's a little trickier as a
So-
Jedi because you're
Yeah.
supposed to kind of hold yourself to a higher.
Your
standard
saber's
than-
red.
Your saber's
I
red.
think it's
that's
a
usually-
rule,
or even tinted,
or
that
even
way.
orangish red.
Yeah,
If you're close to red,
But I like that.
I just.
Well, we were
Yeah.
talking about Hunger Games. We saw the new Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and I don't think good villains have necessarily bad intentions at the bottom. Some do,
Yeah.
but even if they do, there's a reason. They have a reason why,
yeah,
and there's an end goal that they think is something good at the end.
or
They,
they don't
they
even,
just most feel the ends justify the means,
Well,
and
even
they do
Thanos.
they
even
do whatever
Thanos
they
is like-
can
Yeah.
to get to the end.
Exactly.
Thanos had a similar.
Yeah.
or they don't even start that way.
They
Like,
don't.
When I was watching,
No, villains aren't born villains. They're
Yeah.
something pushes
Yeah.
them that
I
direction.
mean, I was watching Hunger Games. Obviously, it's a prequel story
Yeah.
of how he becomes evil.
Yeah.
You know, essentially. And while I'm watching it, it reminded me a lot of like Anakin's arc of like,
yeah,
I don't want to become this, and then inevitably it's exactly who you became.
Yeah. you do it.
It's like
you're-
Anakin
there's reasons.
saw these visions and didn't want allow the evil to happen, and that's what drove him mad down this
To try to
path of
prevent something
trying so
bad.
hard to prevent it. He ends up causing
Yeah,
everything to happen the way it did.
Yeah. It's so
that's cool.
I thought that was interesting. And then any thoughts on him saying like, oh yeah, we're kind of wait and see. Do we right now? Would you think that they're going to recast, or do you think that they're kind of gonna maybe he'll do something in animation
It's
or
a-
something
it's a-
later? Or do you think that it's because
It's a double-edged thing. The
It's tough 'cause
the
he was
love
so
expressed
good.
for the character and the
If
fact
they
that he
do
died,
animation,
they-
yeah.
Yes.
it makes them hesitant to just go. Yeah, we'll just throw somebody else in there.
Also, the fact
what I
that
mean?
people were so in love with the performance of the character, it's
Right.
not a guarantee that whoever they cast that everyone's
It's
gonna
gonna
like,
be great.
yeah, bring him back
That's
because
exactly right.
people are so attached because of how good
Who's
he
gonna
was.
say,
as a
"Yeah, I'll do
character.
I think it's
Just like I
tough
wouldn't be like
because-
just recast Heath Ledger's Joker because he's a great character.
Can't do
Well,
it.
Heath Ledger made it a great character.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Like even though the Joker's been a great character in comics and stuff forever, but like you don't want to just do it because you think, oh yeah, because I want more of that. You're not gonna get more of that. You
Right.
might get more of something similar that's really
Yeah.
good. So we'll see. I don't know.
Maybe.
What do you think?
Yeah. No, I think it's like you guys are saying, I think it's tough because obviously you don't want to just jump in and announce a recast. Even if they plan to do that, you have to kind of go about it in a respectful way.
Yeah.
And I don't think there'd be a ton of people that just hate on them if they did choose to do that because so many people love the character so much
Mhm.
they would like to see it continue.
Mhm.
In some ways, maybe even honoring Ray. That's like,
Yeah.
you put in the work of this character and did such a good job. So many people love it that we want to see
Got to
it
keep it going.
continue.
Mhm.
So it wouldn't be necessarily, I don't think, like ill intentions to recast if that's
No.
what they end
Mm-mm.
up choosing to do. But if they did go like an animation route, that is tough because then it's like, do they already have something in line animation wise, or are now they creating a story of animation to continue this, or creating a show of animation or something to continue
Yeah.
this story because
But like a Tales
Rey's
of the
not
Jet, like
here.
a Tales of the Jedi though,
it would
because you don't have to make a show just for him, but you could make an episode showing that
Continuing
character,
that,
just like
yeah.
you've done a Dooku character, you've
Mhm.
done these other things
I
that
think it's just we don't know the story or what Dave, had in mind, but I do think part of it will have to do with where did he see that story going in terms of its relation to Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Like, was Balin's character with potentially Mortis and the father? Was that going to be the next big part of Ahsoka's story? Because how she teases it at the end is, and we're here for a reason too.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like Ezra's back where he needs to be, and he's there for a reason.
that's right.
We're stuck here, but we're also here for
There's
a reason. And it kind of points towards the Mortis God. So
Mhm.
if that was where the story was going and it was going to be a huge, vital role for Ahsoka,
gotta recast.
then you've got to
Yeah.
figure something out. But if
We'll
it was
see.
more, if they were able to do it so that she still goes on and does kind of something else, and then that was his, then maybe they could tell that story in a different medium. I don't know.
We're almost to the era where, and part of the negotiation of the SAG strike was how to deal with after you die.
Yeah.
How do we deal with this digital self that they can
Mhm.
create?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think we're quite there yet to make it, but 5 or 10 years, they could just make a digital version of that person to continue. I think it's going to
Yeah.
be, we're getting there
Yeah.
with what we're seeing. So, but I don't know. His role is so big.
Yeah.
It would be hard to do that now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they would do that anyway.
And
Yeah, you mean just
clearly,
respectfully, you don't know if they would even.
Yeah, I don't think
consider
they would.
that. Yeah.
clearly with him fighting Ahsoka twice in the show, and neither time he died. To me, that means Filoni had big plans for him moving forward. Not like big plans like, there's a Balin movie coming or something. But it could have been even part of the plans for the movie coming out.
Could be.
Or for Ahsoka season. But it was big enough that this is a villain that he easily could have. Not because they would have any idea what would happen.
And was
in
obviously
real life.
pointing towards something
But I'm
bigger with
saying
the Mortis
he comes
gods. Like,
in
that's a big thing.
Yeah.
The fact that he fights her twice, and twice
Yeah.
she doesn't get him.
It
She
ends in
doesn't
a
get him.
yeah.
Feels like, I remember thinking when he was fighting her the second time, I thought, oh, no, don't die, because I was hoping that there's something big coming. And then he survives. To me, it was like, in my mind, check, good. That means there's a big payoff, and then they did have the payoff at the end of the episode. That was kind of, obviously the cliffhanger for the season. Interesting follow-up on this. In a different article in EW, Dave Filoni addressed the possibility of a second season of Ahsoka. And here's his quote. That's kind of interesting. I've set up several threads that can continue. But if not, I feel like, well, at least I got Ezra home, and that was really important. But there's always a plan. So, interesting again.
Why was that really important?
Getting Ezra home?
Yeah.
That was just the whole point.
Ahsoka's
That's the
not
whole
home.
point of getting
No, I know,
Ezra home.
but
Dave, Ahsoka's
I
not
know.
home.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that was the point.
I mean,
of the story
because
that was being
Yeah,
told,
get
but-
question,
getting
you
Ezra
gotta have
home
an
was
answer.
getting Ezra home was the big cliffhanger going all the way back to Rebels. That's why.
Yeah.
That was that. You had to get Ezra home,
He got
but now Ahsoka and Sabine are not home.
Yeah.
right.
So Thrawn is
You got
obviously
Thrawn
come
home.
back.
It's a classic 2-for-1 trade.
But again, so interesting. I don't think this. It doesn't mean this doesn't sound like they're for sure not doing a second season, but it doesn't sound like it's a home run that they're doing a second season either. That they're trying to figure out if they're going to do a second season before the movie. Obviously the movie I think is still a handful of years down the road.
Yeah.
Disney
I think
Plus,
that's the next project that comes out in a few months.
few months.
Yeah, right.
It's in the works.
There's not any.
Disney Plus was down to 387 million lost last quarter.
Down
Wow.
to Lost, yeah.
So they're making
There we
making
go.
progress. 150
Turn
million
around.
subs.
Well,
Wow.
that might lead into our conversation right now of future of Star Wars stuff.
150 million.
Future Star Wars stuff.
We're getting there.
I know. Did you guys see that Daisy Ridley had an interview recently talking about her? She was asked about her movie,
Really?
and she said
What movie?
about her upcoming 15 years after the Rise of Skywalker Rey film. And I wish I had screenshot the exact quote, but I did read it, so I remember what it said. That helps, by the way. If you read things,
You read
sometimes you just
stuff.
learn.
You can be a learner of
Um,
things.
I don't need my phone as a crutch, but I will look at it. No, I
Oh,
don't
the
have it.
check-
She said she was asked about it, and she said couple of things. One, that she's really excited about it. She has read the story. She knows the story, and she said, now there's not a finished script. That stuff takes time, so I haven't read the complete script. But the story that's been told to me and was pitched to me that she said, I know the story of, her quote was, I know the story of one film.
Hmm.
And then she said, now, that's not to say that it's for sure only going to be one film. Perhaps it could be others. That's not my decision. But I know the story of one film, and it was not at all what I expected. That's what she said. She said in a
Huh.
excite. She said,
She's going dark.
She
Wow.
said it was not at all what I expected, and I think people are going to be really excited about that. That was like her quote.
Huh.
And then she also said,
Wow.
I'm excited about it. To my knowledge, again, I don't decide these things, but to my understanding, I believe it is the next film that'll come out. That's what she said. That it
Ooh.
is, so what was kind of what we had thought based on what they did at Star Wars Celebration. But again, confirmation. I think that's coming before this Filoni film. But so kind of the main things could be more than one film, because I think she was actually asked in the interview, "Is this a trilogy?" And she said, "Well, I know the story of one film. Again, maybe," and I think that's good. I think that's good by Lucasfilm as far as. I think that they've gotten ahead of themselves sometimes announcing here's the Rian Johnson trilogy coming. And then when you pull back, it's like, now you're not canceling one movie, you're canceling 3 movies.
Right.
Here's the Kevin
That's right.
Feige movie. Here's the Taika movie.
Kevin Feige finally officially was asked about his Star Wars. Are you doing a Star Wars movie? And he said no.
He's out.
And he said, I'm not doing
All
Star Wars.
right.
He said no. I have to rebuild the shambles of the MCU.
Yeah, really. I'm not sure I'm making an MCU movie at this point.
He said, at this point, I'm getting kicked out.
Right.
So I thought that was exciting. Her saying that it's a story that she I mean, a lot of these actors usually say like, "Oh, it was exciting." That's kind of actor talk a lot.
Yeah.
But her actually saying it's not what I expected.
Yeah.
And I think people are gonna be really excited about that. Again, we don't have to make like predictions or anything. But
I'm excited about that quote.
I'm excited about it. Also, I was thinking about this the other day. 15 years, because I was thinking, oh man, they're gonna like make up, age her up, because it's supposed to be 15 years. And I was like, no, it's just when
We're
it's gonna
there.
come out. So
We're
it's
there.
out.
It is just
Because when you think of when
out.
they actually filmed,
You go back and watch The Force Awakens. She looks so young.
I know it.
well,
It's
if you look at
crazy.
Force Awakens came out in 15. It actually was filmed. It filmed in like 13 into 14. At the end of a good 15. I think it was 15 months ahead is when they gave the first teaser trailer for The Force Awakens. It's like the biggest. You'll never see a trailer that far in advance anymore. They do them like 6 months maybe now.
Maybe
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man 3
No
weeks.
Way Home was like 2 months before.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we forgot. Solo never even gave us a trailer. Basically, they're like, oh, I
Uh-uh.
forgot we have a movie coming out. They didn't promote it at all.
Man.
But you think of how young she was very early. She was like 23 or something when it started. Maybe even younger, 22, 23. But from 13 to now, we're at 2023 going on 2024. This
don't have to age.
This film's going to come out in 2020. I mean, yeah.
It might a
Put
little,
it this
maybe
way,
a little
this
bit.
film is going to come out in 2020, at the earliest, 2026.
Yeah. A little bit of makeup.
So, but 2026 to 2019, that's 7 years already. We're already halfway to 15. Right. So it's like she is actually aged in real life. The amount that you would have to just increase her aging, makeup-wise or whatever, if you wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's funny because when that first happened, I was thinking like, oh, she's gonna have to look a lot older. Like, oh, that's just, no,
Just
they'll just keep the pace of what they're doing.
Yeah.
Keep going.
It'll come out. But Taika's movie will come out in 2038. No, they haven't
How can
announced
they?
that, but Taika had a quote that said
That's insane.
he was asked
How
about.
can that's Cameron years.
That is Cameron.
Those
years.
are Cameron
It is.
years.
Although Cameron has followed up Cameron's like, be patient, and I'm going to just make
How can you do
incredible
that?
billions.
That's insane.
Taika had a quote about he had his Next Goal Wins, his soccer movie that just came out, and so he was being interviewed about his comedic soccer movie. I didn't see it, but he was being interviewed about
That
asked
sounds
about
like
Star
a
Wars.
Taika.
Yeah,
Make a soccer movie.
Soccer movie. And
Soccer comedy.
he was asked about his Star Wars movie, and
It's called
he
football.
said
It's football.
he said that you've got. I mentioned this to you I think yesterday when we were talking that he said I have a handful of other projects that I have to finish first. So it makes it sound like this again. This is still way down the line.
Way down.
A handful of other things.
Jojo Rabbit 2.
Oh, Jar Jar Rabbit. That would be great if he was
Return of Hitler.
Return of
It's a CGI Hitler.
But he said, but what I can tell you is it will be a Taika Waititi movie, and that's gonna make a lot of people mad. That's what he said in his interview. He said,
Wow, that's
I
funny.
think he's kind of pushing back a
He's
little.
pushing
I know
back.
people
he's
are
bitter
really
about
hard
the-
on him
the
about
Love and
Thunder and
Yeah.
Taika's this or too jokey. And Taika's like, I've always been jokey.
Yeah.
But he said it will be a Taika. But I can tell you, it will be a Taika Waititi movie, and that's gonna make people mad.
I saw the quote he said about
Interesting.
doing Ragnarok.
Bitte?
Did you see that?
You mean about saying that? Although
Yeah,
you were saying he did it
said,
for the money?
He said, I took the MCU Thor Ragnarok movie because I had no money. I was broke. I needed to
Yeah, I
make
needed
money.
to.
and
He said
the
I'm an
MCU
indie
was paying
filmmaker,
me.
and I thought, I need to feed my kids. I needed to
Hey.
pay bills.
Most of us work for that reason.
Yeah.
Also, if that's your work when you're doing it just for the money, do it for the money all the time because
Do it,
Ragnarok
yeah.
is incredible.
It's awesome.
Ragnarok's so
Ragnarok's
good.
still like a top 5 to 6 MCU movie probably ever. It's just so good.
It's great.
So who knows? Again, Taika's is still
Well, it was
apparently
interesting. You're
still
talking
out there,
about-
but it's a while.
She's talking about if it's more than one movie. Episode 4 could have been. I was just
That's
thinking,
exactly
an
the-
alternate universe. Episode 4 is the only movie.
Yep.
Star Wars: A New Hope. It's the only movie they make. It stands totally by itself.
Totally.
Yeah.
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 It's interesting.
I think that I think it'd be good for the movie to be like that. Like if they make this
Yeah.
film in that
It's,
way,
it's hard to do though.
it
Make
is hard to do. But
wrap
it's
it
also,
up, but leave
it's also hard
options.
to
Yeah.
intentionally end on a cliffhanger. George did that for the second one because then he's
We were
like-
already
he's-
in.
Yeah, we were in.
Yeah.
The only question going into 3 was, or going into 6, going into Jedi was just if Harrison was going to return.
Mhm.
That's why he had to freeze him in carbonite.
Yeah.
He wasn't sure if he would come back again. So yeah, I mean, I think it'd be exciting if the Rey film 1 just comes out. I like though that they're like, let's try to focus on making a great movie. But
Just
also,
leave everybody alive,
yeah,
and then you can go another direction.
That's
from
great.
there.
Yeah.
Is it going to be another Skywalker movie? Is that, or was that just for the end of this?
that's.
Rey Skywalker.
I mean, that's
Like
the thing
Ray,
is-
Ray, as in Ray won't be the main character.
No, I
I
mean
mean,
it's
it's going to be
because
episode 10.
if she's
Yeah.
in it,
It's a
It's not a
continuation of
Skywalker
the
saga.
Skywalker.
That's what
Right.
makes me think if it's.
Skywalker's still
That's
in
what
it.
makes me feel like if she's not the main character, they can get away with it not being part
Yeah.
of the Skywalker saga. But she's in it. But now we're following
a
the main
somebody
character is
new.
now somebody else, so it's not part of the.
Yeah, it won't be a
Yeah.
Skywalker.
It'll be a Skyrunner.
Skyrunner, Star Killer.
Skyrunner.
The so when we're thinking about the future of Star Wars movies, I know Bob Iger had another quote this week, which he said I think in like 2020 also, but he said this week, like it was this week or last week in a shareholders thing, was that we are very much focused on quality over quantity right now with Disney in general.
Yeah,
Which,
Yeah.
yeah,
Good.
yeah. I mean, MCU. We talked about the MCU. MCU's way pulling back.
Shambles.
You know that? Well,
They're in
Nate
shambles.
loves this MCU and shambles thing.
I love the beef.
But they're way pulling back because they got spread. Kevin Feige got spread way too thin.
Well, they just had the
put-
biggest, their lowest box office I think ever.
Well, and also, but it's also been trending that way too.
Yeah.
This isn't like a
Yeah,
one hit.
it's-
It's
No,
one
like
thing
people
if it's
predicted
like,
it.
Well, I think even the Disney Plus shows in general, unfortunately, have all taken a significant viewership drop. I know that they showed that
Oh, yeah.
Ahsoka was way down from like compared to like an Obi-Wan or
Secret Invasion. And
compared Mando season 3 was way down compared to its other seasons.
although Loki went up because everyone loved Loki. But it
Well-
just shows you if you make a good show.
I mean, the
Yeah.
MCU has only one film right now, one film scheduled to come out next year, which is
Deadpool 3.
Deadpool 3, which is probably going to be great. But it's also an example that even the other companies within Disney, so it's not just a Lucasfilm thing, but they're like, listen, because streaming has changed stuff so much in positively and negatively sometimes, because one, it hurts box office when you know that, if I just wait, if I'm just patient, this is just going to show up in my lap at home and I can just watch this. There are a
Right.
lot of people that don't feel like, there are a
Not
lot of
only
people
that,
that don't
it'll be
feel.
next month because the next thing will come out. It's like there's been so much.
Well, talking about that for Star Wars, it is interesting that we don't know the release date. This is the first time in a long time that we don't know the release date for the next, not just
Project.
film, anything. We know things that are in the can. We know they've finished Acolyte. We know they've finished Skeleton Crew. There's been announcements, I think, of when Acolyte's coming out. Skeleton Crew hasn't even been mentioned. Like as far
Yeah.
as when they're I saw some people like, did they just finish this? And they're like, we don't know what to do with this show yet. Like they haven't announced anything as far. They took its release date off, kind of during all the strike stuff, which happened to a lot of different projects that they're like waiting to release it, or waiting to give a new release date. But it is interesting that looking at streaming as far as where we were, like let's say a year or so ago, or about a year ago, when you're like, oh man, in the next year and a half, we have announced already that, not just announced, but we know like filmed, actors talking about. We have, at the time it was like, we have Mando 2, we have Book of Boba Fett, we have
Ahsoka.
Andor, we have Ahsoka, we have Obi-Wan. And there's 5 right there. And they had already announced Acolyte at that point. They just hadn't shown anything of it. But and we have Acolyte. There's 6. Where now, we don't really know the future of Mando as far as
we don't know.
We don't really know that. I know Pedro Pascal. Did he get officially cast as Reed Richards, or they're just talking about him as Reed Richards? Did you hear for him being Fantastic Four?
I think he.
There was a quote.
Not officially.
I read something about it.
But
I heard that people saying that. Did you hear that? There was a report
he
that
was
said
like
that he
the
might
runner or something.
that he might pull back from Mando because of that. Like that as far as seeing his face, the article headline was that we may have seen the last of Pedro Pascal's face in The Mandalorian if he's confirmed to do that. And I'm like, what? To me that's a bummer because it's like we didn't see his face this year.
Right.
Like there are some things that I'm like,
Also,
it kind of feels like we've treaded
It's also
water on
they
Mandalorian
built up so much in the first 2 seasons of him taking the helmet off. I thought it was all leading to a point where it would just
That's it.
He would take it off all the time, and they completely digressed.
Well,
not to
be overly
went
critical.
the other route. It's not to be. You're
overly
never
critical.
taking it off ever again.
Yeah, not to be overly critical, but we do like to point out, like, oh, this kind of was a weird decision. I do think that this season of Mandalorian had a few different things that I'm like, oh, it feels like we almost created a character arc to solve something that had already been solved. Like, the end of season 2 was the emotional attachment. I've learned these are religious.
Taking my helmet off was worth it because it made the connection.
These are zealots. Yeah. Like they've been referred to as the zealots. And instead, like this season, it's he then reverts completely back, has to ask for forgiveness, digs his heels in, and is like, I'm never taking it off again. I was
Grogu's like,
oh man. And Grogu's like,
why'd I come back? Why'd I come back?
Right.
So that did feel a little.
In fact, they're gonna put one on Grogu. Bringing him in.
Exactly.
And Pedro's gonna do the voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
So looking forward, it is strange to think we know Andor season 2. I think that's 2024. They've finished filming season 2. So I'm excited
they
for
all
that.
have helmets in that
I think
too.
Barbie just ruined everything.
ruined everything
for film or just
in
in
life.
Life?
I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying it ruined everything because now, like MCU, Star Wars, they kind of had an idea. Like, okay, we know what works, and then Barbie comes out like, we don't have any idea what to do.
Barbie
and there's
Oppenheimer comes out and blows.
There's so many movies now. They have it finished. It's in their hand, and they say we're not going to put it out. We're going to bury it.
Yeah,
I read report after report about the risk of taking a finished, completely finished,
and
releasing it. The money spent to just release it in the theaters.
Yeah,
and then the shame when it fails.
Yeah.
It's so risky now.
I mean,
nobody wants to do it.
Completely, the Batgirl movie.
Batgirl, they said that
completely
film
finished. They showed it to theaters. They showed it to test audiences,
and then
they hated it so much.
They actually said that they thought that it was such a risk for the studio and for the actors and director involved that it's better if this never sees the light of day because they might not recover from it. And I'm like, oh my goodness,
career ending.
That's so bad.
That's the status of making a movie today.
Career ending.
Jaws would never get made.
Yeah,
Star Wars would never get made.
There are movies
way
right
too
now.
risky.
Yeah,
There's
even
no
the movies
way
that
they would
felt
make
like
Star
an
Wars
automatic, almost like an going back a handful of years. And I think this is interesting. This is good to kind of go into this bigger conversation of the film industry and the TV industry has changed significantly. Box office has changed so significantly. We were at a stretch. Talking about the MCU again, Star Wars was the same thing. There was a stretch where it felt like, even I remember it being like alarming to me almost, or not alarming, but like surprised when Solo didn't make it was the first Star Wars movie that didn't come near what they thought it was going to make.
Mhm.
Now, that had a number, we've talked about this before. There's a number of things that stacked up against that movie because I really like Solo.
Yeah.
But it was the release date against Infinity War, like literally fighting its own. They didn't promote it.
There was still
It's
a thought
after
of
Lost Jet,
it's a Star Wars
Jedi.
movie. That was still in there.
But to me, yeah,
It's a Star Wars
I thought
movie.
it's
It'll
a
be
Star Wars
fine.
movie. It's going to make $1 billion.
That's what they were thinking too.
Yeah, and I thought
Yeah.
so too. Of like Star Wars movies crush it, and it had a huge opening weekend still. Especially compared to now, you look at movies now.
Oh yeah. Well,
Aside from the phenomenon that was Barbie and Oppenheimer, which
Yeah.
did you see Oppenheimer now is like very close to actually reaching $1 billion as a
I think it's re-releasing again
as
in
a
IMAX.
as a
crazy.
rated R 3-hour biopic.
Historical biopic.
Historical.
Yeah, right.
I saw someone say
Never.
it's a science. It's what does someone call it? The Nerd Avengers. It's a science Avengers movie. Yeah, let's get all the best. I've got this
That's
quantum.
exactly what it
Like
is.
it's like I've got
It's
this.
the NCU.
I got this quantum.
The nerd cinematic universe.
I've got this quantum specialist.
The NCU
Yes.
is all of Christopher Nolan's movies.
They're like, I've got this
Christopher Nolan.
quantum
Nolan
specialist.
cinematic
Oh,
universe.
Scott Lang? No, an actual.
No,
no,
actually.
not a superhero. An actual, just a scientist. And we're gonna get them together. And we're gonna create
And they're
something.
going to talk
we're gonna
about
save
stuff
the world, or we're gonna like
by talking.
and
gonna be
that
awesome.
makes $1 billion.
We're gonna have an explosion. Oh, like a bunch of explosions. No, just one.
That
Just the
makes
one.
that makes $1 billion. That makes $1 billion,
Blow
and
stuff
I
up,
and I
though?
absolutely love that film.
Nothing is blown up.
It is
But that
great.
makes $1 billion, and they're already talking about. I mean,
Oppenheimer 2.
well, no, I'm saying,
We're already talking about it.
but they're already talking about how like Aquaman 2, which is coming out, is already projected. The first Aquaman movie made $1.2 billion, which is crazy.
That is insane.
But they're talking about the projections opening weekend for Aquaman to be how much said Opera Man, which is of course Adam
Ooh.
Sandler. Opera Man.
Yeah.
Is the projections opening weekend are like 35 to 40 million, which for an average movie is great.
Right.
For a superhero movie is very bad, and for a movie that was, I mean, the first Miss Marvel made $1 billion. Not Miss Marvel. Captain Marvel made $1 billion. The second one's not going to make like 200 million.
And people didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, so it is changed. There was a time when MCU had put up like 20 movies in a row without a miss. Pixar,
Yeah.
like, without a miss.
Yeah.
It was like,
I think
Pixar
Uncle
movie's gonna be
said
great.
it right earlier. I mean, Hollywood doesn't know what to make anymore.
No.
I think part of it is the post COVID movie going has gone down
Yeah.
some, but I do think
In
part
a
of it is
way-
also just the nature of the streaming and what
Yeah.
does big cinematography, like what does big cinema look like? What does a blockbuster look like anymore?
Yeah. I mean, these things happen. These shifts happen. In a way, I don't want anybody to fail. I don't like that.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
to see movies do well, and they put a lot of work in them. I don't want to see
Making movies
them
is
do
difficult.
poorly. But it does say something to the creative nature of movie making.
Yeah,
We're shifting back. It used to be sequels and superheroes. That was it.
Yeah.
You go to
And
the movie
now
for sequels and
it's
super, and
exactly
now
right.
it's not working, and they
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
to tell stories again. So they have to tell
You're seeing a
Barbie.
creative shift.
Barbie's
Yes.
based on something kids remember, but there's still an interesting dynamic.
Yes,
and
it's a
funny.
very. I
Yeah.
saw it. It's a very whatever you think of the movie, it's very unique. I've never
Yeah.
seen any movie like
so
it.
they're
It's
not
very-
telling
yeah.
the same. They're not just telling the same story.
Yeah,
And Oppenheimer. So in a way, it's pushing us back to the telling us a story again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
an entertaining story.
No, you're exactly
Definitely.
right.
They still don't know what that is, though. They don't know what it looks like.
and it is hard
No.
because it's
Yeah.
not. The days are definitely
The
gone
only
too of
safe
just
thing
like
is Christopher Nolan.
That's right.
Christopher Nolan
Where's
is.
Chris's next movie?
Christopher Nolan he's such he's one of my favorite filmmakers ever. But he is such a good taste of finding the line of a unique, interesting, that is also going to get people talking about it, that gets people to like his movies are see it on the big screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is interesting that not all directors, but not even all like legendary directors have had the same success. Scorsese with Killers of the Flower Moon made like $50. Like they're talking about
50. It was one ticket.
I mean, they're talking about it being nominated for a ton of Oscars, but they also
which
said
is also
it's like,
Leonardo DiCaprio, who was
this is Leo.
not
This
anymore.
This is Leo. This is Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
They're talking about that movie being like the biggest financial flop of Scorsese's career.
And that was
But it's
Apple
gonna win
TV. That was Apple TV Plus backed, or Apple TV backed, wasn't it?
Apple TV. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, obviously,
Apple
I saw,
TV Plus.
I saw,
TV Plus.
Apple TV
I
Plus.
saw trailers and stuff, but I don't remember seeing like
TV Plus Max.
having the big names like Leo and stuff and Scorsese. It made me, I don't know if the marketing was that like I saw trailers, but I don't remember like Oppenheimer and stuff. I'm like, obviously it's everywhere.
Yeah.
The marketing they had for that was with the. I mean, it did.
The Barbenheimer was
it did help
incredible
with the
marketing.
Barbenheimer stuff, but
Right.
even beside that, I don't know if it's just because it was Christopher Nolan, but you could tell they put a lot of money behind the marketing.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
think The Irishman hurt.
Yeah, I still haven't seen The Irishman, but I know you saw it.
I
You were
was-
like,
I thought it
was
felt like it was
comical.
not.
Goodfellas is one of my favorite. You know, you have guilty pleasures. I watch Goodfellas now. Like, hard to watch. I don't look at certain parts just because it's. But that's just
Yeah.
gangster movie, Scorsese. But I don't think it carries the same. You can't just throw Scorsese and De Niro out there, and it doesn't. I mean, that was
No.
30 years ago.
Doesn't
I love
hold the same weight.
I don't know if you guys
Doesn't
have seen
do
The
it
Departed.
anymore.
I love The Departed.
Same
The Departed's
thing.
really good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that is a loaded. That's a loaded cast. That feels like even with a loaded cast today, loaded
Doesn't do
casts
it.
don't mean that it's gonna
No, people aren't going to drop $15
Because
for
people
for
don't-
Scorsese. It's just,
make
Yeah.
it's
Gotta be
changed a
something
lot.
else.
There was a time when if you knew Denzel was in a movie, people would go see just because of Denzel
Well,
or
Tom Hanks.
Or Tom Hanks.
Yeah,
Equalizer.
Whereas
Spielberg.
even Tom Hanks movies now, it's not like, oh, Tom Hanks movie, it's going to be a financial success.
Right,
Like,
no.
it might be a pretty good movie because Tom Hanks usually.
Well, we
picks-
talked about this before.
Right.
I
Makes
mean, you used to
movies
go
great,
to
but-
a movie for the the movie star.
Yeah.
Like that was it.
That's right.
Like if this person, Tommy Hanks, like,
Tommy
you're
Hanks.
going to watch Tommy Hanks.
making
Didn't matter what it
movies.
is. Now it's I think because of the nature of the superhero and sequels,
Yeah.
that has kind of changed a little bit. I mean, you have actors that are like your favorite actors, and you would probably be more interested in going to see that.
Yeah.
But I'm not just going to see every Leo movie, even though I like Leo. Or
Yeah.
every Tom Hanks movie.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it and be like, that's a story or something I'm interested in.
That's right.
That's kind of shifted over the last.
It's also a
10,
lot.
20
There's a lot more
years.
choices.
Yeah,
A lot
It's
more
not like,
choices.
that's what's out this weekend.
true. It's you got to win me. You got.
Well, that's here, but
it
this
has
is
to be-
hitting Disney Plus.
Exactly.
This is hitting
Yeah.
Peacock. That's
True.
hitting Paramount. I might watch that. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's different.
yeah.
It is. It's so tying this all into Star Wars as we're getting kind of closer to wrapping
Is that
up
what
here.
this is
This is
about?
Star Wars, right? The Star Wars guys?
This
the
is Star
future.
Wars.
The cinema guys.
It is. I will say because we haven't talked a ton about it, but Filoni's new role.
Yeah.
So Filoni, it was announced in one of these articles. Maybe it was Vanity Fair. I think it was. Filoni talked about that he is now in the role of, I believe what they call Chief Creative Officer,
Mhm.
which he describes as.
I thought he did that before.
Yeah. Well,
It's
this.
official now.
Yeah. So
They asked him anyway. Dave, do you think we should?
he said,
no.
"Listen, I'm gonna need a new title and a raise if you're gonna keep asking me these
He
things."
said,
I
"Listen,
picture Chief Creative. Yeah.
give me the biggest cowboy hat. Do I get a bigger cowboy hat?
"Give me the biggest cowboy hat and a nice wolf T-shirt."
Yeah, he loves a wolf T-shirt.
Yeah.
He loves
Well,
a
who
good
doesn't?
wolf shirt.
Yeah, that's right.
Who
Um,
don't?
I've got one on under here. I don't know what that was.
Loth wolf.
Yeah, there you go. But what's interesting about his new job, he describes it as because people like asked like what it was this in the interview like how's this different for what you were doing, and he said, in the past, in these past number of years, I have been involved in things. Things are brought to me, and I give my input. Usually very far down the line, though. He said this is usually when the product is very much far in development. They ask for
Now that this is
for my
done,
notes.
Dave, what do you think?
Should this do we do
And,
this?
and
or
he
this?
and he said
Yeah.
in here, but this goes beyond now. Like a Jedi does this, a Jedi should do this. He's like, that's kind of what my role was of like.
The
Does this
canon
feel
eye-
like
the canon guy?
Keeper of the canon.
He's the canon guy, and does this feel
He's
like
the Force mythologist.
Exactly. Are we breaking like tenets of what a Jedi should be? That type of a thing.
Yeah.
While like, yeah, we know he's been a producer and he's been had such a big role in like Mando and all these different things. But with these other shows, we didn't really know. Like, I don't know, like if he had eyes on some of these other shows as much because we never really talked about it. But on here, he said, "Now I am involved in the creative process at its inception. At the very beginning, I am not someone who is like you should not do this." Or he said, "I'm not telling people what to do. I am here to help them, to best guide them and help their creative vision come to the best possible outcome." So not saying you should do this, but this is what we want to do. Here's how we need to do it here, and help them craft.
What are the parameters around what is capable?
Yeah, and I do think that's exciting, having someone that is.
It's kind of Feige-esque.
People
honestly.
talk about it being like a Feige-esque role of he's not the head of. I mean, everyone who said any of these people who are like fire Kathleen Kennedy as head of Lucasfilm and Filoni doesn't want to be. Do you know what head of Lucasfilm is talking with board members and like shareholders and stuff like that? Like,
He wants to do that.
and he's not. That's not. He feels like he wants to sit there with a sketch pad and he wants to think of
Wants
ideas.
to draw, and we
Yeah.
want him to draw.
Yeah.
So this I think is a good. I mean, things sounds like a good thing.
He is the closest George Lucas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if George is the Jedi,
he was his Padawan.
Filoni's
that's
the
what he says.
Padawan.
Listen,
And
George isn't showing up to set on Mando without Filoni being.
I'm so comfortable with
No.
Filoni keeping it going.
Yeah.
It's great.
Totally.
It's rare to find the creator and then somebody else that dialed in.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
cool.
I think it's just a testament to not only his respect for Star Wars, but his respect to George and honoring what his vision of Star Wars and the Force and
That's
the
right.
mythology behind everything that Filoni, I mean, you could see it in interviews. He's like, before I make a decision, obviously we want to have some leeway and be able to be creative and maybe open up, the audience's mind to like, oh, is this capable or whatever? But then in our mind, I'm always thinking of, does this go against what George's vision is for the Force? And if so, then it's scrapped. We're not doing it.
And he could still ask. There's going to come a
He
time.
said, but there are
Yeah.
things where we
You
want
won't be
to
able
kind of
to.
make you think like, oh, I didn't know if this was capable or this was possible. But
Yeah.
it still fits within that
World
vision.
Between Worlds.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like I like that he explores the idea of anyone can be a Jedi in some capacity,
Right.
or like the use the Force,
Which is actually the most George
Which is what
Lucas
George-
thing,
yeah.
honestly. 'Cause
Yeah.
he
George said
says
it's like
everybody-
learning. George said using the Force is like learning karate. Like not everyone, or like
Some people
learning
have
like,
have a
People can do
yeah,
it, but some
like
are
martial arts. He
naturally.
said not everyone is Bruce Lee, and not everyone is naturally gifted at this. But like if you work at it, you can get
You
your
can
brown
get
belt.
that,
You
yeah.
can get your black.
If the
you
Force
can,
really is in all living, is in everything,
Yeah.
then it would make sense that
Yeah.
someone.
So I
Learn
like it.
how
I
to
think
set.
it also helps. Not that you need someone who's going to be like, I have to have my hands in every single thing, but it is nice to have someone who, like you said, is the extension of Lucas.
To have a
That is not
cohesive-
going to have something that goes
Vision.
not feel wise, but against the tenets of Star Wars. As far as, again, we've talked about past scripts of other films that could have been made, but like actually
Waiting for the
have.
name
But
drop.
it
Filoni
actually-
feels a duty to.
yeah, it feels a
keep
duty of
it-
like,
Yeah.
listen, we
within
can
the
do
realm.
these things, but these are things that you cannot break because I know that is not what George intended, and it's not like a character thing or this, but we're not going to.
You can
have
make
the
Rebel
big
Moon,
message.
but you're not going to make it.
You're not going to make
It's
it.
not
as
going to be Star Wars.
You're not going to
Yeah.
have the You're not going to have the climax of the final.
I'm
of
curious
the
to see how that
Skywalker
movie's
of the
gonna
final
be.
I know.
Skywalker film end with, I learned all the Jedi were wrong.
Right. That can't
All the
be
Jedi were
thing.
wrong. You have to embrace not just the light, but embrace the dark. In that there is no light or there's no dark, but there's actually just the middle.
Let's
He's
end
like,
by
no,
saying
no.
everything George did was wrong.
Like
Can't-
he's
yeah,
like,
we're
no,
not doing that.
that is not at all what George says. Like the people have moments of their life and they have decisions that feels like that was kind of gray. But the gray is really the moments where they then decide, do I go to the light or the dark?
Clarifying.
They don't say, oh, the gray is
That's
the
where I
answer.
live.
I live in the gray.
Yeah.
I live in the uncertainty of what decision to make.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that and again we bring that up as an example just because I think people it's common now for people to be like, oh, they should have done this, they should have done that. This is the actual alternate script that was out there because this was the plan, and one of the main reasons it fell through is at the ending.
It made for a cool comic.
And again, I read the whole
Elements of
storyboard comic thing of it, and there's a
Yeah.
lot in there that I'm like, oh, that would have been awesome. That would have been really cool. And you get to the finale, and I'm like, oh, that actually
Can't do that.
is the only time I've ever seen
Wait,
something
what's this
that
called?
actually
Oh, Rebel
is
Moon.
anti.
Oh,
Like,
that's right. Right.
it's like one of the only
The
things I've ever seen
opposite.
that is actually does not work in Star Wars because it's anti the whole idea.
Mhm.
Like you can't. You
No
can't.
grey
If we
Jedi.
want to teach kids, which is the whole thing of George is like, this needs to be a
It
morality.
needs to be
tale
hopeful.
For
It's not going to
kids.
be
Yeah.
embracing the dark side.
I'm not going to teach these 10-year-olds. It's a morality
Embrace
tale
the
for
dark.
10-year-olds and
Lean
12-year-olds.
towards the evil.
That oh yeah, if you kill, but then also if you harness the anger and use it in a way to unleash ultimate power. Well, now you're a video game character in not Star Wars. Like that's
And
right. It
evil.
doesn't work in evil. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that moving forward, when you look at the films, I understand them being hesitant because I'm like, if I was in charge of Lucasfilm right now, I would be a little nervous of, man, the last one wasn't, even though we like it, the last one wasn't super well received. We're taking such time to get the next one
There's
out
a lot
there.
of pressure on
It feels like this has to be done. It has to be a hit. Or like
Yeah.
it feels like there's pressure of like, we can't come off of a long hiatus and have a flop.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
I think
interesting.
box office wise, because it's been so long, I think regardless of its reception, it's going to do well box office wise because everyone's going to go see it
Mm-hmm.
because it's been so long. Now, does that mean it will be well received or not? I hope so.
Well, Indiana
But-
Jones. That's Disney
Man,
Plus
Indiana
tomorrow.
Jones.
Is it tomorrow?
So,
And
tomorrow.
I really like.
Today, what is today? Yeah,
Did you
Yeah.
see Dial of Destiny?
haven't seen it.
It hits tomorrow. You said.
Mhm.
Oh, I really like that movie.
I liked it.
I really
I
like
liked
that
it,
movie.
yeah.
Now, financially, did not
Didn't.
do well.
Didn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing. If you would have told me a few years back, like Harrison's gonna come back to do Indy and it's
It's not gonna work.
just
Yeah.
underperform,
Go.
you'd be like,
What?
It's too bad.
bummer.
I
How?
know.
Did you get the same Harrison? Harrison Ford?
The guy. He was another one. If he had a movie out, everybody
Oh, yeah.
saw it at one
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's changed. So
Well,
and
the
I'm
future of
changing
Star
too.
Wars.
Hello, Star Wars. Hello, Anaheim. I'm old and Canadian now.
Canadian.
He was always Canadian.
Wasn't always old.
Wasn't always old.
He's still young.
Although he
He's
did.
not old.
No, he's not. Oh, last little piece of news I saw.
Yeah.
Did you see yesterday that said that Hayden Christensen? It was announced that he signed with some big acting agency, and so people are excited because not necessarily Star Wars related, but that sounds like he's making a bigger return into acting and more things because he took a huge
Oh yeah.
hiatus. But I think the
Rebel. He's in Rebel Moon.
Rebel Moon.
and on a
That's what
positive
they
note
do.
for
They
our
just
pod,
take Star Wars characters.
and on a
take
positive
the actors.
Put them all in.
that's right.
You're gonna be Stanikin.
You're gonna be
Your
Stanikin.
name is Stan.
Stanikin Mallwalker.
Stanikin Mallwalker.
He's just walking around the mall.
And you have a light sword.
But to end on a
you see
positive
the
note
trailer
for
for
our
that?
Mm-hmm.
The lightsaber
I know.
yeah.
looks interesting.
To end on a positive note for our podcast, it sounds like the love that people have shown Hayden Christensen has maybe
Good.
inspired him to get back out
He's a
there.
great
'cause
actor.
Good.
He's a great actor.
You always joke about it, but Life is a House. You have to watch it.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
I only
He plays
joke.
a young teen.
House. Oh.
It's young teen angst
Yeah.
in a new life, and
He was. I mean, his
good.
acting in Ahsoka was fantastic.
Yeah. it's awesome.
And I just
He's great.
this I love every single bit
They're
of
making
dialogue.
Jumper too.
oh,
Jumping Higher.
Jumping
Wait,
Heimer?
actually?
No, I'm just kidding.
Jumping
Isn't that the
Heimer?
movie he was in.
Great.
where he
Yeah,
was
Jumper was
teleporting?
great.
Jump 2, White Men
I
Can
just
Jump.
love that movie.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's what it's
That
called.
was a fun
Why
movie.
would-
Jumper 2, White Men Can Jump. I like the sub. The added titles make it funny.
That's funny.
Oppenheimer 2.
Yes.
Everybody's
Oppenheimer.
dead.
Oh
That's
my
what it's
goodness.
called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Nate, where can the people
Yeah.
find us?
Here on YouTube.
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka.
Theme
Yeah,
song.
hey, we're glad to be back. We're on a little break there, but we're back. We're back. So
Back and Better than ever.
glad to be here talking Star Wars. Appreciate everybody tuning in. But if you made it this far, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and smash the notification bell.
Smash.
And if you're listening to our podcast on audio wherever you're listening.
Don't
to it.
smash
Spotify.
it if you're listening.
Yeah, don't smash
Don't
it. Hit
smash
it gently.
anything.
This
Hit it
podcast
gently.
out.
But
Smash,
yeah, follow the pod.
smash.
Follow the pod. You can find us on audio on pretty much any podcasting.
I love anywhere you
platform.
find
All
your podcast.
favorite, anywhere you find
Anywhere you
podcasts,
find your
we're there.
And if you
Star
like
Wars
seeing us
guys.
on YouTube,
What is wrong with you?
I like seeing you guys on YouTube.
Comment that.
Yes.
I like seeing you guys
Yeah,
on
what is
YouTube.
wrong with you?
Let us
Like
know
this
what your
lie?
thoughts are on the future of Star Wars. What projects that have been announced, but we don't know the dates on when they're coming. Which ones you're looking forward to most? Is it Acolyte? Is it Lando potentially? Rey's movie.
Lando being a film now.
Well,
they're
well,
saying.
well.
Yeah, Lando being a
Well,
film. So
yeah.
let us know your thoughts. What are you looking forward to most? We'll catch you guys next time. And as always, may the Force be with you.
For some reason, I'm going to. Just I mightn't be saying that.
Musa.
Are you brainless? I spec.
I'll
back.
stop.
The ability to speak doesn't make you a